My name is Tessa Rogers, and this is my action research study called Closing the Numbers Gap. I teach third grade at LaSalle Academy in Shillington. Currently, I have 2 classes of 12 students in each class that I teach math to, which was really my experimental group and my control group for the study. This is my last class for my Master's in Assessment Curriculum and Teaching with a STEM endorsement. I wanted to learn about a method that would improve my math instruction that encompasses technology, hands-on learning, and collaboration to better engage my students in 21st century skill practice. The problem was that I have a wide spectrum of achievement ranging anywhere from a first grade ability level to a fourth grade one in math. So I wanted to improve my ability to better meet the needs of the students in my classroom. This led me to research a more targeted instruction to individual students. And through this, I wanted to provide opportunities for students to engage with math content that would better match their pace of learning. And I was hoping that through this, I would get more student engagement and math achievement. Research question: what is the impact of a station rotation blended learning model on student achievement in a third grade mathematics classroom? After reviewing the literature, I came up with 5 guiding principles here. The first being the numbers gap, and that the station rotation blended learning model has been shown to improve students' achievement, in particular in low socioeconomic areas, on their scores for math and science. Also, through differentiation, the station rotation model can be implemented as a way to maximize math instruction across all ability levels by incorporating innovative technology. Then I have student achievement, which this study found that a statistically significant difference existed in the performance of the 2 groups of the study, one being a third grade blended learning classroom versus a third grade traditional math classroom. They found that the blended learning students scored higher on the math achievement tests than the traditional students. The study that was able to interview students and gain their perspective was helpful because it allowed me to see their opinion on the station rotation model, in particular because they expressed that it gave them the opportunity to do more in the stations. And then the last study I found was on effective teaching, and that employing traditional teaching practices effectively in blended learning models would lead to greater gains in student growth overall. My 3 quantitative data collection methods that I used were the Iowa Flex online assessment that measured the skill levels in operations and algebraic thinking, which is the unit I was instructing over the course of the 3 weeks. And so I have the pre-test and the post-test. The pre-test, I was able to get a benchmark that informed me on their skill levels. And then the post-test, I looked at comparing their initial scores to see if there was movement among the 3 levels. On the teacher's summative assessments, I aligned them with our diocesan curriculum standards, and that again had a pre-test and a post-test. Initially, I was able to gauge the students' achievement levels, and then on the post-test, I measured their growth of the conceptual knowledge when compared to the pre-test. The formative assessments were really a way for me to monitor students' learning, and so I gave them at the end of each of the 3 weeks. I used a teacher rubric to grade them on a 4-point scale, and each of these assessments coincided with the math concepts that were taught throughout that week. My first finding on the Iowa Flex online assessment was that My control group, so class A that got the traditional instruction, didn't see an increase to their post-test scores, whereas class B, my experimental group that got the station rotation, increased their high scores on the post-test and also decreased their low scores on the post-test. 3 students in my control group advanced their scores, whereas in the experimental group it was 6. And then this pointed to the capability of the station rotation to better differentiate instruction to each individual student's math abilities. The next theme I came across after data analysis, particularly on my summative assessment, was closing the gap. So if you look at my first graph, I have the 3 lowest scores from each class. So my experimental group, even though they had a lower overall average on the pre-test, on the post-test, they outperformed their class A counterparts. And basically on the next graph here, I have them broken up into thirds, so bottom, middle, and top. And the bottom third made them most substantial increases from their pre-test. So they started at a 34% and increased 32% to a 66%, which was a 10% higher than their cohorts in the control group. The trend also continues with the middle third here, but by a much smaller margin. So I was able to better close the knowledge gap among the varying learner levels here. The data analysis that I had for the formative assessments really led me to effective instruction being key in the intervention that we put forth in our classroom. So I saw that in week 1, I didn't have any students below average in my experimental group, whereas in week 1, my control group, I had 2. Week 2, I was actually absent, which was when I tested positive for coronavirus, and I wasn't able to be present at all in either one of my classes. So you see a decrease in both their overall averages. But luckily in week 3, I met virtually with my station rotation class, my teacher instruction classes I met with, and their overall average increased to 3.25, whereas my week 3 control group remained with substitutes instructing them for their whole group and remained at below and on level class average. So in conclusion, with the requisite resources in place, the station rotation blended learning has the capacity to be an efficacious modality in combination with a strong emphasis on the mastery and application of 21st century skills through innovative educational strategies. So the impact is that I plan on continuing the station rotation model in my experimental group, as well as to change to this model in my control group. And then with this fully in place, I plan on using my formative and summative assessments for math units to measure the overall growth and achievement of each student. And then I want this to be able to support the articulation of this model to the elementary grades that may also see a broad range of mathematical ability levels among the students in their classroom. Thank you very much. Looking forward to your feedback.